Welcome to the Council of Better Business Bureau's podcast, Better Business, Better Series, where we will explore top-of-mind topics with business and industry leaders to understand the leading trends and innovations that continue to push the envelope in today's marketplace.
For the Better Business, Better Series podcast, I'm Elena Espinola, filling in for Will Johnson. Today, we'll discuss with two CEOs what truly takes place when an organization goes through a CEO transition. The Chief Executive Officer is, of course, the highest-ranking executive in a company, and their primary responsibilities include making major corporate decisions, managing the overall operations of a company, and acting as the main point of communication between the board of directors and the corporate operations. Needless to say, when a transition takes place, there's a lot at stake. Our guests today are Ted Beck, current and outgoing CEO of the National Endowment for Financial Education, and Dr. Billy Hensley, who has taken the place as CEO. Thank you both so much for being here with us in the studio.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sue.
Yeah. So, Ted, I know you've been the CEO at NEFE for the last 13 years. Can you share with us any emotions or mixed feelings you're facing and how you managed through them to ensure a smooth transition for the organization as a whole?
Yes, it's been a great place to work, and I think we've accomplished a great deal. So it's been a very fulfilling and positive experience. Now, about 2 years ago, my wife and I decided that it would make sense to pick a time to retire, and that's the end of this month. So I informed the board at that time, and we wanted a nice, orderly transition. We didn't want to have something sneak up on us or people speculating. So it hasn't been a tough transition because I think that the quality of the people with the organization is so strong. But what I have to focus on is turning over the healthiest organization I possibly can to Billy and the board and the staff so that they can keep doing the work that I think's been so positive. So really focusing on momentum, morale, and making sure that it's as healthy as it can possibly be has really been the priority, and that takes any sting out of it.
Sure. And so it sounds like it's rather smooth. You've given yourself some time, as you said, 2 years. You've given everyone some time. When you first became CEO at NEFE, what was that transition like for you? And did you face any challenges early on?
Well, it was really an interesting. I came from the outside, so I did not really know NEFE. I didn't know the people. I didn't know the details of the organization. So I had to learn those quickly. Now I'm on my third career, so every other time I'd taken a job, it was available because something was broken. And I came to NEFE and I kept on looking for what was broken, and nothing was broken. It was a very strong organization, very good people. And I'd fallen into the ideal new job where I just got to be curious and go around saying, what is really, what do people want to know? What's the need? Are the needs of the country? And what can this organization do to be of service? Now, I think that the most challenging moment is then the recession came. So suddenly the whole idea of personal financial responsibility, protecting yourself became a national priority. And everybody was very interested in what we did. So I came in at, I think, an ideal time. And fortunately, I didn't have to spend any time fixing anything. So if you ever get offered a job where people are good and nothing's broken, take it.
Yeah, take it. And then you can spend more time looking for positive things to do versus, as you said, fixing anything that needs fixing.
Yes.
And as you transition out of the role and Billy is becoming the new CEO, what has your role been specifically in helping to ensure that Billy will succeed? Is the board heavily involved in this process? Is there a right way to handle the complex nature of a succession?
Well, it is a tough question. The board put together a search committee that really was in place for about a year. And used an outside consultant. There's very great interest in the job. Billy was chosen over a very strong field, to his credit. That was a very, I think, comfortable and easy choice for everybody involved. But there were a lot of very strong people interested. And that final decision really wasn't made till the beginning of June. So there was a fairly long window where everybody knew somebody was coming in, but nobody necessarily knew who it was. So maintaining momentum is the key thing that I had to focus on. And there's a fine line there. You want to make sure that the organization is continuing to build out what it's already doing. But also, if something new is coming along that you really think might be applicable and you want to start that could be a major change for the organization. So, for example, we were looking at how to refocus our technology. Should we combine some of our efforts just to be more efficient? Now, we couldn't just wait and say, well, let's let the next CEO worry about that. On the other hand, we really didn't want to put something in place that person might disagree with.
Sure.
So the solution was, let's go ahead and do the homework. Let's do all of the research on how we might make changes, and then give those to the next person so that they can implement their vision. But for me to make a decision at the 11th hour that somebody else had to live with and potentially unravel would have been a mistake.
Yeah.
So it's keep momentum, but don't commit to something that might have to be changed when a new person's in charge.
Sure. Well, great advice for anyone who might be listening in their organization going through something very similar. And Billy, congratulations on your new executive position as CEO at NEFE. Can you share your thoughts on adjusting to a new and aggressive learning curve?
Well, thank you, Elaine. I appreciate that. I'm very excited about this transition and the new role for me at NEFE. You know, I was at NEFE for 8 years as Senior Director of Education. And, you know, as far as my thoughts on this, you know, I'm very fortunate because 3 reasons. I had a great mentor in the gentleman who's sitting here with me today. We have a very strong staff, and I know the programs really well in my current role with research and program development and so forth. But then there's the other side of that learning curve that you mentioned, catching up on the aspects of the operations. And in the current position, you know, I wasn't really involved in the investment side of our work and the pension management side of our work and the benefits management side of our work and so forth. And learning the details, the day-to-day details of the operations has been where I've been focusing my time because, again, I've been fortunate to know that.
Sure. And, you know, as you mentioned, you're learning the new financial and operational situations with NEFE. What about some of the specific cultural, political, and personal goals? I know you've been there for 8 years, but how, you know, important is it, achievable is this for the new CEO to grasp and then incorporate into your strategy?
Well, I think it's important that the staff see me as the CEO and not as the research guy, you know, as the person who's working on programs. And again, like Ted mentioned, you know, that transition is, you know, in a way you have to sort of manage the personality side of it. For me, kind of the expectation of not getting involved in the operational details of the department that I've been overseeing and being the CEO and seeing the organization and how decisions impact us all, not my own department, and managing that personally as well as for the staff. But also thinking about the topic of financial literacy and where we're going and the technological changes that are happening in the field, and also worrying about, you know, topic fatigue as the economy gets better. Do people get lazier about their personal finance and so forth?
Sure. You know, let's talk about something that happens within an organization sometimes when there's a change in leadership. And that is that sometimes employees feel anxious. Mm-hmm. You know, they have been following your leadership. They know your style. They know what to expect. And then, you know, they understand someone new is coming. Do you sense that within NEFE right now? Any kind of anxiety, I guess? Or, you know, and then also how do you balance that employee morale as you transition?
Yeah. Well, I think with any transition, there's some level of anxiety of the unknown. Even though I'm a known entity with the staff, I think thinking about what will my priorities be and how will I, you know, facilitate those things, and looking forward to planning and getting into the next budget planning cycle and how that they will do that. For me, the 2 components of this, especially the first several months, is spend a lot of time listening and spend a lot of time being open and communicating. Not only what I know or what I'm thinking, but to solicit feedback and have an open dialogue. And in transitions that I've been in the past, whether that be other foundations where I've worked or in higher education, when it is done really well, the communication has been very clear.
Yeah, that makes sense. Communication, transparency, that I would think would put some anxieties at ease for anyone who's kind of wondering if anything's going to change with their particular role, just having an understanding and feeling like they can openly communicate and understand what's going on. That makes a lot of sense. Speaking of financial literacy today, what are both of your thoughts on the landscape of that industry, and what challenges and opportunities do you see for the industry, also for the community and other nonprofits today?
Yeah, Ted?
Well, it's a very interesting time. We talked about the recession a minute ago. That really created financial literacy as a high priority. The question is how do you maintain that? And how do you maintain that focus? There's been a lot of discussion around strategy. There's been a lot of events here in Washington that have really driven some of that thought process. President's councils, the formation of CFPB, the research focus, which has been so important because the researchers really stepped up. But there's a transition going on. Now is a question about how do you start to implement some of those good ideas that have been developed. So I personally think there's going to be somewhat of a shift down to the focus on what's going on in the states. State mandates, both in schools, but also one of the, I think, big things is workplace education is really growing. This idea that financial literacy is a continuous process that really starts with your parents around the dinner table and goes through retirement planning is something that we've really fleshed out. And maintaining and figuring out how to deliver that, how to measure it, how to make sure it's continually improving so that it's not just a one and done and you think you know everything. That maintaining that momentum at really the grassroots level, I think, is very important. Plus, there's other communities, the people with disabilities. We haven't really done enough work around financial capability training with that community or people in the social work services area. So there's lots of ways to build out what we're doing and expand that message so it covers the entire population. And one of the major changes that I hope we can maintain is the role of media has been really critical over the last 10 years. People want answers on how to protect themselves. The priority is no longer, the American dream isn't having a house. It's now, and we have actually data to back this, it's having enough money to retire. So maintaining that minimum, maintaining the high priority that media has given to what the work we're doing, I think is a really interesting challenge for us.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Combating topic fatigue and meeting people where they are.
Sure.
How are people seeking out information, and how can we adapt to that ever-changing landscape? We don't want to be just catching up. We actually want to be on the forefront of that, specifically for our topic, but for education interventions in general.
Sure. Well, Ted, obviously you have been in the business of helping other individuals financially plan for all stages of life, including retirement. And so we have no doubt that you have properly prepared for your future, and we wish you much success and enjoyment as you move on. Congratulations on your retirement. As you said earlier, we'll see how long it is before you have a new career because you like to keep yourself very busy. But best of luck on your sailboat.
Thank you.
As you mentioned. And Billy, we wish you tremendous success as your new role as CEO at the National Endowment for Financial Education. As we wrap up, can you both just share what you feel are some of the most important qualities in a great leader and any advice you have for other outgoing and incoming CEOs? Because from the sounds of it, you guys are doing it very well.
Listen more than you talk, period.
Good advice.
For years, when people have asked me questions like that, there's three things that I focus on, especially coming into a new organization. And especially if it's the first time you've been head of something. First is people. Make sure you have the right people. And make your own judgments. Very often when you come into an organization, especially if you're new to it, people will say, well, this person's good, this person's not, blah, blah, blah. Give people a chance. I've been very surprised by some people who I was told were challenges. Given a fresh piece of paper, they actually did really well. So make your own judgment and make sure you have the right people. Second thing is realize your job is to make them successful. They are not there to make you look good. You're there to support them to make sure they're as efficient as they can possibly be and as successful as they possibly be. So it's not tops down, it's bottoms up. And if you're not looking out for the people in the organization and making sure you're giving them that support, your probability of success has just dropped a lot.
Sure.
And the third thing is when people do things that are really impressive, give them credit for it. I've seen a lot of organizations that have been really hurt by people who take credit for everything that happens in the group. Mm-hmm. And that's a great way to lose highly capable, especially young people coming up. So if somebody hits a home run, tell them they hit a home run and let the world know it. But you've already gotten the job. You don't need to go around and tell everybody how great you are. Let them know your people are really good.
Yeah. Well, excellent advice, and I can see why you have been so successful in your career. Thank you both so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure and a really fun conversation, and one that I hope is inspiring and helpful to others in your same position. If you would like to learn more about the National Endowment for Financial Education, you can visit their website at www.nefe.org. For the Better Business, Better Series podcast, I'm Elena Spinola, filling in for my colleague, Will Johnson. I'm the host for the Bistro podcast, which is the consumer channel for the Better Business Bureau. You can download both channels on iTunes for free anytime, and we hope you do.
You just enjoyed Better Business, Better Series podcast. Be sure to tune in next month for a brand new episode. To learn more about our other shows, visit betterbusiness.blueberry.com. That's betterbusiness.blueberry.com and subscribe. The thoughts and opinions expressed on this podcast are the views and opinions of the guest, not those of the Better Business Bureau, Council of Better Business Bureau, or program affiliates. This podcast is for information and educational purposes only and is copyrighted with all rights reserved. This podcast is protected by Blueberry's Terms of Service.